Okay, good morning and welcome to another episode of I'm More Than the Immigrants You Had in Mind. And this morning I'm here with Liz Lee. So Liz, welcome. Thank you for being part of this and sharing your perspective on coming to Canada. Can you just kind of briefly introduce yourself, where you've come from and how long you've been in Canada?
Hello. Good morning. Thanks for having me, Quentin. Yeah, my name is Liz Lee. I'm originally from Beijing, China. I have been living in Victoria for 7 years.
And did you come directly to Victoria from China then?
Yes, Victoria is the only city we have been living in Canada.
And tell me a little bit about how that happened. How did that come to be? What prompted you to come to Canada? Why, in particular, to the West Coast and Victoria?
Yeah, it's a very interesting story. I think maybe the short story is two reasons brought my family to Canada. One is because of the pollution. When we were in China, the pollution in Beijing was so serious. We don't want to put our health at risk, especially for our daughter. So another reason is because for my daughter, it's education. Even though my husband and I were well educated, both of us holded a master's degree in our home country. Somehow we were the survivor of that kind of educational system. But we don't want our daughter to follow our footsteps because we have known there are some problems in that educational system. For example, people value the memories rather than exploring something. So we don't think it's a good way for the kid. So that's why we moved here. Very interesting thing is, in 2016, in the summer, we visited Victoria because one of our friends lives in Oak Bay. Yeah, when we came here, my daughter happened to attend a summer camp in Oak Bay High. So she loved this city, and my husband and I also loved this city. And then we applied for immigration. We came here. That's our story, the long story, in short.
Yeah, okay. Well, definitely, you can see you coming to, I think we're fortunate here on the West Coast. We experience some of the least amount of pollution in probably in North America, and certainly so that would be a big change. And now tell me a little bit about the kind of the process of making that decision to want to come here. How was the application process to immigrate to Canada? And then for you, coming and arriving here, what were the big, were there significant gaps in terms of your expectations and your hopes and versus what you found, or?
Yes, I think similar to a lot of newcomers, I think the process is not so easy because initially just me and my daughter stay in Victoria. My husband have to fly between Victoria and Beijing back and forth. That means our family have to separate it in a period of time. So I think it was a hard time for all of us. So fortunately, I think compared with a lot of people who are in is a kind of uncertainty about their status, I think we are very lucky because we got our PR in a relatively short period of time. We got our PR, we stay here. In terms of the gap, I think the huge gap is about our career.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. So I know you hold a master's degree.
Yes.
And what's your master's degree is in?
Chinese literature. And so does my husband. He also has master's degree.
And then, okay, so from a career point of view, what's, obviously, living, in your home country in China, you had established careers, and then coming here, tell me, what is your kind of career background and your sort of your work, and then how are you, how's that going in terms of translating that experience to the Canadian workplace and the Canadian market?
Yeah, sure. So in my home country, I have a bachelor's degree in journalism. Actually, I worked as a reporter for our national television. I think it's equivalent to CBC for many years. And then also both of my husband and I were directors of documentaries. We have served for our national television for over 1 decade. And then we left that organization and run our own company. That's also a studio. We produce a lot of documentaries focused on culture and the history of China. Okay. So when we moved to Canada, I think language is a kind of a barrier. It's a kind of another thing is, if we want to continue our career, we need to get a better understanding of the new industry and build a kind of networking. But that will take time. Yeah, for us, it's challenging.
Yeah, I think, obviously careers in media take time to build, but it's got to be frustrating to have that experience, working in national media, running your own business, making, full documentaries, and then feeling like you're starting over. That's got to be demoralizing.
Yes. Even though I think we are confident. Maybe in the future, in some time, maybe we can get to that goal. But definitely, it takes time.
And perseverance.
Yeah, perseverance. Yeah, it's a perseverance. I think it's essential ingredients for every immigrant. Yeah, every immigrant.
Now, and for your family, you've talked about, you have one daughter? Or?
Yeah,
okay.
I have only one daughter.
Right. And how old is she?
Oh, she's 17 years old. Nowadays, she is in grade 12. It's the final year of her high school.
And what are her interests?
Oh, she wants to learn something about the biochemistry or something about the neuroscience.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So she's got a lot more school ahead of her by the sound of it.
Yes. Somehow I'm also a helicopter mom, not a tiger mom, but a helicopter mom.
And how, for the transition for her from Beijing to here, I mean, you said you came, you visited, she liked the city. How's that transition been for her?
Oh, I think for her, it was much easier than that for us. Because when we were in Beijing, my daughter attended an international school. So all of her teachers, the vast majority of her classmates are English native speakers, and also they follow the syllabus. I think maybe in just the same as the North America, rather than follow the syllabus of China. So the transition is much smooth.
Right. Yeah. So she was already a little bit familiar, kind of with.
Yes.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
The system, the language, and even the culture.
Right.
Yep.
So, and you mentioned language as a barrier. When you arrived in Canada, how were your English levels when you arrived for you and your husband?
Yes, actually, when we were in China, we passed the highest English examination in our home country. But I think somehow it's not so practical. For me, I think it was okay. Yeah, even though back then, 7 years ago, maybe sometimes people were struggling with my accent, Chinese accent. But I think it was okay. Yeah, people can understand me. But maybe for my husband, it was more difficult.
Okay.
Yeah. Especially for a person, we have make a living on our language, characters, writing. All of a sudden, sometimes you will feel, oh, that is a word just on my tongue, but I couldn't find that. You couldn't, in a situation when you couldn't express yourself 100%, right. It's kind of frustrating. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, especially, somebody, obviously, clearly you're very attuned to literature and the sort of how people articulate and express emotions and ideas.
Yep.
So now feeling that gulf between, being the nuance of being able to express something must be. Yeah.
Nuance. Yeah. Even though at this time, sometimes I think, I'm just wondering, what's the exactly word to describe that kind of feeling. Yeah, I think maybe I think in my first language, it's not a thing. It's not a thing. Yeah. Maybe I can figure out more than 100 words to express myself. But in English, maybe it's very limited choice.
That's right.
Yeah, it's a long way to go.
Yes, to build that vocabulary. And
yes.
That, yeah.
Even though I think I'm okay. I think nowadays, I think I'm okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously your English is excellent. So.
Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Better than my Mandarin, let's say.
Oh, okay. I'm also a Mandarin teacher. We can exchange language.
Okay, fair enough.
Yep.
So tell me more about your work, in terms of your interests, I guess, around Chinese literature, your work as a filmmaker. I'd like to understand more about the background of the work you did while you were in China.
Yes, in China, I think basically we did some documentary about, especially for Chinese history or culture. Yes, for me, I also co-authored a book. Yeah.
Right. So you're an accomplished author, filmmaker,
and also
student of literature.
Yes. I also wrote some articles for the magazines. Yeah, so a lot of things. I made a living on my writing. Sorry, writing. Yeah.
And what were your articles and what kinds of documentaries were you working on? I mean, you mentioned history. The articles similar topics or different?
Different, actually. The articles I focus on some parenting. Yeah, that's the kind of topic I have been thinking of. Yeah, I think. Yeah, it's kind of sometimes you have to beat that kind of stereotype. Maybe a lot of people think, an Asian mom maybe is a tiger mom. I want to break that kind of stereotype. Yeah, from another perspective, I think it's not a good thing, because if you trying to do something on purpose, that means you have a way to achieve that goal.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's my understanding.
Yeah. And so, I mean, let's talk a little bit about your role, obviously, as a mother. I mean, there's a lot there to navigate your, a role as a mother, your professional career, and moving to a completely new country. So that's a lot going on at once. What does that present to you in terms of, thinking about your interest and perspective around parenting? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Oh, thank you. Thanks for bringing up that question. In China, as I mentioned before, we have found there are some problems in that educational system. So what we are trying to do is encourage our daughter to explore something rather than just memorize something, just find the right answer to your examination. So actually at home, we always encourage our daughter to communicate with us equally. I have to use this word because in Chinese culture, sometimes the kid, maybe you don't have the chance to communicate with your parents in an equal way. Maybe you just need to obey their rules. That kind of culture encourage obedience rather than your own opinions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's we share a philosophy there. I think with our daughter, it's very similar. We've always worked to support her capacity to express herself, to have her own opinions and ideas, and to make good choices for herself, and not to let other people make poor choices for her. Perhaps most importantly, and I think you only do that through empowerment. Right?
Yeah. I think another thing is we have encouraged our daughter to take risks and sometimes embrace your own mistakes. Yeah, that is the thing. I think it's a kind of philosophy. Yeah, as you mentioned.
And so now today, I mean, you're working with ICA.
Yeah.
And how has ICA had a significant role in your immigration journey here?
Yes, ICA has played a very vital role in my life. Actually, maybe 2 years ago, I joined SA as a student in the link class. Right. And then I was so lucky. Yeah, here I met a lot of amazing teachers. My teacher, Jennifer Taylor, oh, she's amazing. She helps me a lot, yeah, even in nowadays. Yeah. So and after I graduated from SA, I applied for a job at SA, I think.
Yeah. Well, we're certainly glad to have you here. I know
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, as I mentioned, I talked with Jennifer. I think at SA I got two important things. One is the confidence. Another is the sense of belonging. I think the two things are very important to a newcomer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You know, also often more so than some of the more pragmatic things, right? Yeah. So, because building confidence, feeling like you're part of something, building a sense of community again.
Yes.
Absolutely. So from here, what are you working towards, in the future? Thinking again more maybe about, obviously, you've made choices that will help your daughter in terms of building the future she's looking for. What are your aspirations for yourself in terms of, rebuilding, career paths, or what would you like to see yourself doing?
Thanks for bringing this important question. Yes, I think, as you know, the position I'm working in nowadays is an entry level. I think in the future, if possible, I will pursue a higher level, maybe in some specific departments which is related to my background. Yeah, that's my purpose. That's my goal.
Right. So when you say in your background, you're thinking around sort of journalism and media, is that?
Yeah, maybe something related to education, because firstly, that is something I have been keeping thinking about for many years. Another thing is, currently, I'm also a Chinese teacher, Mandarin teacher in the Victoria Chinese Public School. I'm also a teacher there. So.
Great. So you said you've been here now 7 years.
Yeah, 7 years.
What would you say, if you could identify one thing that was maybe the most significant challenge coming to Canada, and then also for you, what feels like the greatest kind of success right now?
I think the most biggest, the challenge is the credential, of your background, of your education. So here, especially for the Chinese-speaking country, I feel like it looks like our system is excluded from the whole world. We need to provide a lot of proof of our experience, of our career, of our education. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a common challenge. I hear that quite a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe for some people who comes from the English-speaking country, maybe I assume maybe it's much, much easier.
Yeah, unfortunately, probably some difference. Although I think even there, there's this tendency to, overvalue Canadian education, Canadian workplace experience, and undervalue the assets that are really represented from people coming with an international perspective, coming from educational backgrounds that in some way, it's not that one educational system may be necessarily better than another, but they're different, and they bring new ideas. And I think that's, from my point of view, some of the vitality that we're not fully embracing is that, a collective sort of worldview.
Yes. Sometimes when you have to work hard to prove something, I think it's not a good thing. Yeah.
What about what feels like your greatest success so far?
So far is, to be honest, I think working into an English-speaking workplace, I think so far is my biggest success.
Feeling confident in that space.
Yes, actually, for a lot of people who come to a new country, I think they feel more comfortable to stay in their comfort zone, speaking their own language, stay with their own community. I don't blame that kind of choice. Everyone has their own task. Yeah, everyone has their own situation. So for me, I think it's maybe from some other people's perspective, it's just a small step. But for me, I think at least I step out of my comfort zone.
Very good. My last question for you is if, so our audience for this is, the community at large wanting to share and hear the stories from people who have come from all over the world to Canada, but also for other newcomers who have recently arrived and are feeling some of the uncertainty around those choices or being in an unfamiliar environment. Is there something you would say to somebody who's just arrived in Canada, a piece of advice or something that you would tell them to help them?
Oh, yeah. I think one thing I would like to say is trust yourself. Give yourself enough time. Yeah, that's my that's my advice. Yeah, for me, I think actually looking back today, I think at the first stage of my new life in Canada is I wanted to beat that kind of stereotype on purpose. I remember during I moved to Canada in 2017. In 2018, there was a very popular film was launched, which named Crazy Rich Asians. So at that time, a lot of things I want to do is cut off with that kind of stereotype. I worked very hard. Even at that time, I even want to somehow hide my accent. It was hard, right? It's very, very hard. So, and then eventually I started to embrace my new identity. This kind of identity is, this person is just Liz. Not a person from Eastern Asia, not a person who was used to be a director, not a newcomer even. So, no, I don't think any label could define me. I'm just Liz.